This is probably one of the weirdest lenses I have used. This is the TTArtisan 11mm f2.8 fisheye lens for L mount. Now this lens is coming in around $215, but it's a pretty high quality lens. With a full metal build, it's a pretty hefty lens weighing around 436 grams, or basically almost 0.96 pounds of a lens. Even this little tiny lens, probably because it's completely fully metal, it's pretty heavy of a lens itself. Now this lens does come in a bunch of different mounts, but the current one I am using is a full frame mount for the L mount system. In comparison to my other full frame lenses, this is pretty small in comparison, which paired with the Lumix S9 is kind of a really fun lens to use. Now it is completely fisheye, so there is an entire crazy distortion which you can fix in photos or in videos in post. Now this is a completely fully manual focus lens, so you have to pull focus, but with the fisheye look, it's kind of pretty easy to pull focus on this. It is an f2.8 to all the way to an f16, and something else that they added on top of this is these kind of little markings right here when you are in that focus. If you are an f2.8, it's going to tell you where you're going to be in focus, versus if you're an f16, it's going to show you what could be in focus depending on your focal range. Now online it says it's around a 6.7 inch minimum focus distance, but when I was testing it from the glass element itself, I got just around 2 inches of minimum focus distance, which can get you kind of some unique shots with this lens. But because of that minimum focus distance, you can kind of get some low budget probe lens shots with this lens. Obviously you can't fit this in a bunch of tight scenarios like you can a probe lens, but you can fit this in a bunch of unique areas. It is worth noting, I didn't notice any rubber around this entire lens, so it's most likely not water dust proof at all. So if you are taking this out in the rain or snow, just be wary that this is probably not dust or waterproof whatsoever. So overall, it is kind of a fun, quirky lens to use, and especially at $215, you can't really go wrong with that lens. But without further said, there is still a little bit of a con that I have with this lens, and the main and only con with this lens and just fisheyes in general is you can't really use a variable ND on this or put any type of ND unless you jerry rig it up or use some type of matte box system. So you kind of have to bring down your aperture, which can introduce dust, spots, or smudge marks on your lens. So if your sensor isn't as clean as possible or the lens is a little bit dirty, you'll be able to notice those dust spots when you go to that f16 range for video. So my final thoughts on this lens: for $215, you really can't go wrong for this fisheye lens for the full frame system. If you're looking for something that kind of gives you that fisheye look for skateboarding or something like this, then this lens definitely is going to make sense. I don't recommend using this as a YouTube lens because it kind of gives that weird, way too distorted angle for YouTube, but for vlogging it might be able to be usable if you're using something like the Lumix S9 and using the electronic stabilization on standard or high and it crops in a little bit more and undistorts your image, then you might be able to use this for vlogging. But if you do want to check out the lens I personally use for all my YouTube videos, check out that video right here, and then YouTube recommends you might like this video right here. Until next one guys, peace.